Hello everyone, this is Dr. Alex Avila with Love University, and we're back. I'm an author, psychologist, and speaker. Every week we talk about how to love ourselves, others, and a higher nature, how to improve our finances, career, health, relationships, and spirituality. And we have a very special guest today. This is Jesse Leon. Welcome, Jesse.
Gracias.
Jesse is a graduate of UC Berkeley and Harvard. I think you also said you went to Princeton, is that correct?
UPenn.
UPenn.
But started in community college.
Yes, we're going to get to that. And he works as a social impact consultant to foundations and investors to address substance abuse, affordable housing, mental health, LGBTQ+, and economic educational empowerment. He has managed multi-million-dollar grant-making portfolios, and you manage over $1 billion of public sector investments. And also you've done a lot of stuff with real estate, over 5,000 units in developing. And you also have a remarkable life story, I Am Not Broken, which I happen to read, is very fascinating. And you take us from the horrors of sexual abuse, drug addiction, street violence, to the annals of success, happiness, hope, and redemption. So welcome, Jesse, to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
You have a tremendous story here. Now, it reminds me of a story where this little lion cub got lost from his mother, and a sheep found him, a sheep mother that adopted the little lion, the lion cub. And he was very happy for a while, but then one day he heard a lion roar in the distance, and he recognized that. He also roared, and then he left the sheep and never came back. He recognized the roar within. So many people live what we call half-lives until they recognize another full life is there waiting for them. And I know you have a story that can tell us a little bit about that. So tell us a little bit about what happened to you as a young man.
I was a little loving, caring, nerdy kid. This is me.
Oh, okay. With the glasses too, huh?
This is me, the welfare glasses, hair parted to the side with 3 flowers. Little studious, nerdy boy, and used to get picked on in the neighborhood for being the nerd, because back then being a Chicano nerd was not trendy. It wasn't the cool thing to do in the barrio. So I used to get picked on and bullied all the time. But at 11 years old, I got sexually abused, and my perpetrator was drugging me. So at around 2 months into the sex abuse, he started to pimp me out in the sex trafficking industry of San Diego. And so I was sex trafficked for about 3 years until I was 14. And by the time I was 14, I was already an addict. And when the authorities got involved, my perpetrator disappeared. I turned to the commercial sexual exploitation industry of the streets of children and prostitution to support my drug habit till I was about 18. And that's when I ended up homeless, sleeping under a bush in a park, hopping in and out of random strangers' cars to get money to support my drug habit, and found recovery. I changed my life around. God found me. I allowed God in, and I allowed others to start loving me. And as soon as I started allowing others to love me, I learned how to love myself. And that led me on a journey of community college, a full ride to UC Berkeley, a full ride to Harvard, now a successful published author of I'm Not Broken and No Estoy Roto en Español, and public speaker, executive coach, and consultant to high net worth families and foundations on issues of impact investment to help low-income communities of color.
That's incredible. Very inspiring.
Thank you.
And the other thing is, now you said interesting 3 things that I gathered from your book and also interviews. First of all, you say, I am not broken. Now, I'm curious, you chose that title, and you could have said other things, I am strong or whatever it is, but you said I'm not broken. Tell us why you chose that title.
So the original title of the book was going to be Nerd.
Oh.
My
okay.
nickname growing up. And there was a big fight with the publisher because they felt that nerd brings up an image of a white, techie nerd from Silicon Valley that has since found success through the tech industry. And so they said that nerd doesn't really bring up an image of a little brown boy. And I argued, and we went back and forth. I said, we don't have any positive images of kids of color to be okay as being nerds. You have Urkel and you have Manny from Modern Family. We don't really have any Latino nerds. And in Encanto, the Disney cartoon, it was the first time that you actually had a main character that is of color wearing glasses. And so for me, I was pretty adamant that nerd was going to be the title of my book because I reclaimed the word to be never-ending resilience, determination. But at the end of the day, they decided not to go with that, and I was at an impasse, and I felt really alone. I couldn't find a title. They wanted a title called "The Smell of Eucalyptus." They wanted a title called "Waves Crashing Against the Shores," and I felt sad. And I looked in the mirror. I called upon my higher power, who I choose to call God, for some guidance, and I started rubbing my heart in my chest, and I said, Jesse, you got this, man. You're not broken. You got this. You're not broken, mijo. And I'm like, oh, damn, there's a title. So I decided to stick with I'm Not Broken and No Estoy Roto en Español. And it's been extremely effective to have that title. It's worked out.
Yes. So it's kind of like an epiphany, right? You're in the shower or something, or, something comes to you that's very natural and applies to you. And I think you're also saying Latinos are smart is another theme that runs in your current understanding. But at the time, the word nerd, like you said, your brother made fun of you when he said it. But what do you say now? If someone calls you a nerd today, what's your feeling?
Oh, man, I'm all about nerd power activate.
I think you have the shirt that says nerd power, right?
Totally, man, and channeling your inner nerd. We all have inner nerds. And the one thing I share a lot about when I speak, especially with folks from the barrio that come from certain inner city urban culture that are trying to change their life around, that are trying to go to community college but don't feel smart enough, I say, no, we're smart people. Even with the stuff we have to do sometimes in the street to survive, we're smart people. We're resilient people. And just like you're putting on one hat to be successful in the current industry you may be in the streets, you can switch your hat and learn how to do it in another setting and learn how to code switch. How I speak English now is not how I spoke English 30 years ago. And I had to learn how to play the game, but I had to get in the game first. And so what I tell others is we're smart, we're resilient, we each have our own little nerd inside, and channel that power for good.
That's great, Jesse. Now, they have done studies on children who overcame great adversity, like foster kids, drug-addicted parents, and they found that a third of those kids were resilient and overcame the odds. So this is a long-term study. And what they found is there are three factors that indicated if they could do that. One of them was they had a special talent or gift. They had some kind of personality that was pleasant. They got along with people. Number three, they had a mentor. It could have been a grandma, maybe not even their parents, a coach. And I read through your book, it seemed like quite a few different people that really made a difference. Starting with some community college counselors, Narcotics Anonymous, I think it was a sponsor.
Yeah.
Then you went to Berkeley, you met some very smart Latino students, right? And then finally, Harvard. But you said at Harvard you were kind of shy, or you didn't feel you belonged? Was something going on there about that?
Mm-hmm. So yes, you're absolutely right. I've been blessed to have the most amazing people come into my life at the most unexpected moments. And sometimes I've had mentors that didn't come in the shapes or sizes or skin color that I thought, and I just had to be open to allow people to come into my life, and I call those moments of magic. But Harvard was difficult. It wasn't hard for me academically. It was hard socially. When you're at no one trained me and said, okay, you're going to go to Harvard, and so you're going to utilize these next 2 years of your life to network with some of the most high net worth families in the world, and this is going to be your professional network of individuals who are going to provide you career opportunities for the rest of your life. No one sat me down and said, you're going for school, but you're also going for the network. And so I had a really hard time socializing with people because I'm covered in tattoos. I felt less than. I didn't feel like I belonged because I didn't have a home in Martha's Vineyard. I had no idea who Martha was. I had no idea why they were going to her vineyard. They used to make fun of me and say, oh, it's Martha Stewart's vineyard, and I believe them. So like when you're not raised in that type of setting, well, I not being raised in that type of setting started feeling really insecure. And so at that exact moment, there were a bunch of mid-career students, older students at Harvard that took me under their wing, right, and taught me how to network and taught me how to suit up and show up in a different way to be able to be effective.
It's pretty powerful. Now, I want to introduce a friend of mine, a mentee. This is Carlos Heredia.
Hola, Carlos.
Who has been...
Jesse's not small no more, I'll tell you that much.
Coming from the streets, I guess, of Los Angeles. He has a very fascinating story. When I met him, he had just started
Why
to
do you
recover.
keep getting farther away, man?
He's looking good, right?
No muerdo, eh?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, he was almost killed in prison by his own gang. He was in a coma. Came out of it, started doing some work with the community and some public speaking. And tell us a little about the Penn State story that you tell people.
Excuse me?
About the Penn State story?
Oh, sure. As Jesse just said, there's a lot of education, and not every education is found in the classroom. And with, let me see.
Well, remember, people look. So you look like you came from Penn State because of your suit.
Oh yeah, people see me now, and it's beautiful because I tell people surviving skills, professionalize, become great problem-solving skills, and I see it. I was afraid of being found out. What do you mean by found out? I don't want people to know that I was in foster homes, that I went to prison, but now I got a doctor and actually foster parents, and part of the what I seen the enemy, the system, but actually saved my life when I think back on like when they came in to take me away from my mom's home. What she was on drugs, unfortunately prostituting, so it actually saved me. And also through my journey, I realized because I was thinking, man, my mom couldn't give up men for us and all that, but really she was sacrificing her body for us to eat. It's now that I'm a grown up, I understand that it's not easy to raise 5 kids, single mom with the wages that she was getting, hard worker, but not education wise. And so with that saying is oh man, I had it great going on and living the lie. And what I come later to learn, it was called suicide living. I was respected, feared, but at the same time I was hated. I was and why they're doing why so people always see me, and I always accept the challenge outside but never the challenge inside. And the challenge inside is me, the little boy who cries and wants to be felt like validated over something. And what it was is I was in boxing, so 2 guys went in there to hit me. I beat them up, and then 5 come back, and then just too many. And so I remember I woke up on life support in a medically induced coma, couldn't walk or talk. I couldn't, my left hand had no strength. I couldn't control my adrenaline. I said, wow, this is where my victory has brought me to. And seeing my mother there and my father there, who time has passed, my mom was able to see me now. I seen her looking at me. I was like, man, how many people did I leave like this? Their moms, their dads, and I felt like, okay, so in that spectrum or cultural of what is true to that world, I was in the right, which was great, but what I would have died in the right light. And so now what I've learned is I had to come out and tell my youth. I tell them how you beat a system that's set up for you to fail by becoming something. So what I've learned, as I said, surviving skills are professionalized, become great problem-solving skills, like a rose on top. But just like a rose, there's thorns that you got to cut off, and those are bad habits.
Yes.
And I had to start learning to listening to other people. Les Brown, positive motivation, and not what. Unfortunately, the abnormal. And I tell people, like, why should in our community you graduate high school? We celebrate that. Why not college? Okay, and
Carlos, let me cut you off here because this is important. You are now working, I know, and you went to some college, but you never went to Harvard.
Oh no.
Jesse, what can you advise him? Because I don't know if he believes he can do it.
I say just apply.
Okay.
No.
Or to, I mean, it's not be Harvard, but
In serio, like I started in community college, and I didn't think I was gonna go to undergrad. And if I did, I was doing
cosmetology, right?
I did cosmetology for a year because I thought I was gonna have to drop out of school, and I was confused about my identity at the time. So I figured doing hair would allow me to be around beautiful women and get paid, and I was confused and I was a hot mess, but I stayed in school, and that's the important part, is that I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I started getting involved in criminal justice policy and trying to help out other people of color to not fall prey to the prison industry and the prison industrial complex. Started organizing with Angela Davis, Black Panther, but I got a full ride to Berkeley, and because other people motivated me to just apply. And I didn't think I was going to get into Harvard. A friend of mine told me just apply.
You're laughing, Carlos. What are you laughing?
Why? Because I can imagine how it's
a guy like him, going to Harvard.
Oh no, there's a dude that wrote Harvard Homeboy.
Oh, okay.
Another dude, Ruben Navarrete, who wrote A Darker Shade of Crimson.
Wow.
There's a few folks that come from low-income Latino communities that do go to Harvard. I'm not the only one. Even at Berkeley, I mean, my whole crew were community college transfer students, and a lot of us, were covered in tattoos, and we supported each other, and we helped each other try to learn this new game of academia, because we knew that we wanted a different life, and if not for us, for our families, to get them out of the poverty in which many of us are still trapped in.
So, Carlos, are you applying to Harvard next week?
Not yet, but what I am hearing though is there is a way out, and whatever I want on my journey, I can go get it. And like I said, we all got a sad story, but bounce up.
We all got a powerful story, man.
I like it.
Oh, we're not broken.
We're not broken.
You like the phrase already, huh?
I love it because, as I was saying, I don't want to be found out, but that's exactly why social services has me there, because they want to hear my opinion. They want to, and because I have that applied knowledge of where I come from, it's valuable. So I have to stop learn how to change the perspective of my past as pobrecito, brokenness, but as treasures and wisdom that I can use to bring to light and help others.
Perfect. Now, the other thing, Jesse, I know that you identify as a Latino gay male, and it's important to you, the LGBTQ kind of programs. But coming from your background, right, you were very seriously abused, sexually abused, trafficked, you became a male prostitute, and then you said you were confused, and you lived multiple lives.
Right.
Now, what's your belief of this? Because gay men report up to 3 times more sexual abuse. Some people try to find a correlation between that and the abuse, or even a causation.
Actually, it's 7.6 more times sexual. So LGBT youth who identify as Two-Spirit LGBTQ plus experience sexual violence at 7.6 more times than their cisgender heterosexual peers.
Wow, that's powerful. And is that because they're more vulnerable because they're non-traditional in their personalities, or is it something else? What attracts this kind of abuse?
I don't know how to answer that question.
It's a complicated study.
What I do know is that the way that even in our youth that are incarcerated in the state of California, the latest number that I saw was that 26% of incarcerated LGBTQ plus Two-Spirit youth, 26% are in some kind of sexual related crime in terms of survival sex, so selling themselves to be able to survive out in the streets. So when you're young, you're thrown out, you're forced to live on the streets by yourself. You can't find a job because you're trans, or you don't fit within a nice pretty box that the dominant society wants you to fit into. You're forced to then go into other means to find methods of survival and open yourself up to further predators, further violence, and so it's just sad.
Right. So when you were in the sex trade on your own, you were doing this for money. But
go ahead, sorry.
Okay. Or was it something else?
No. I mean, so I've had to learn how to change my own language. So I used to say I was a sex worker. But literally, when you're 14 to 18 years old, you're still a child. So no matter how independent I may want to view my mindset of being an entrepreneur and being a sex worker, making my own money, the reality is that I was a sexually exploited child in the commercial sex trade of children on the streets.
When did you stop doing that? Was it at 18, or you went a couple more years ago?
At 18, when I got clean and sober, my life completely changed.
Okay. You also mentioned in the book that in Spain you actually came out as gay and you actually were free to experience that as yourself. What was the difference in Spain besides the paellas and all that?
The one thing that Spain provided was an opportunity to be away from family, to be away from my community, to not feel the pressures that I felt for so long in my neighborhood, in my community, from my own family, my uncles, my dad. The machismo, that although it was a means of survival, at the same time there's a toxic side of masculinity, especially in Latino culture. So I had to leave to another country where I had no familial, cultural, community ties to where I can just explore who I am. I'm in Spain walking around my first week with Dickies and my Kmart corduroy slippers and a Pendleton on, with a goatee and a shaved head. And in Spain, you don't really fit in because there is no urban culture at that time. There was only one hip hop club a night. So I'm like, oh damn, like I really don't fit in here. So when I met somebody and that person, we connected and that person took me shopping and I started learning how to wear fitted pants and fitted shirts and different kinds of shoes. I felt awkward, but I fit right in with European culture at the time, and it helped me come out of the closet. You know what? Let me back up, because that's also another term about coming out of the closet or letting people in. I think a lot of people from communities of color, it's too dangerous to come out of the closet, and that white dominant culture of coming out of the closet, for a lot of us, it's letting people in. And me making the choice of who I allow into my space to really get to know me authentically, because oftentimes that also means I'm putting my life in your hands and trusting you, because it can still be dangerous for a lot of communities of color to come out of the closet.
Jesus. So you're kind of reversing words. I mean, in a positive way, right? So coming into the closet,
letting in, as opposed to coming out.
So people join you in your life. The other thing, Jesse, you talked about that you actually like psychology a lot, and in college you studied it. And you like to observe people, like the way gender, in space and things like that. Men and women, and also Latinos and others. How they have different space requirements.
Safe space.
But the other interesting thing is that, you guys are laughing. You guys getting along?
Oh, he's cool.
I told you I brought him for you, man. He's a good guy. So basically, the term catharsis. You may have studied Freud, where you let out your feelings.
Yeah.
So talking about trauma can be that way for some people, where they cry and release it. But you say you like trauma-informed better because it's not just focused on the trauma, it's focused kind of an overall picture. Do you think people should relive their trauma and talk about it in therapy, or no?
So trauma-informed care is done in a way that you're able to talk through your traumas and address core issues without having to relive them. And that's the key point there, is that too often what is not available for low-income families, low-income individuals, and communities of color is having access to culturally competent therapists that practice cultural humility, are open to multilingual services and trauma-informed care, because it's expensive, let alone other types of psychological modalities like EMDR, parts work, IFS, internal family systems, brain spotting. All of those different modalities cost above $300 an hour, and insurance doesn't cover it. So if you don't have access to therapists to give you the type of mental health services that sometimes individuals that have experienced trauma require, where do you have to go? So no, I don't believe that individuals need to constantly relive their trauma. I get asked to speak publicly about my story,
right.
And when people see me cry on stage, when people see me get teared up, it's normally not because I'm reliving the trauma. I'm actually crying from a place of hope, a place of love that I'm able to talk about it freely when for so long I wasn't able to. I was silenced. And I liked your words earlier about, I didn't leave one form of bondage to go into another.
Very nice. Very, very powerful. And you have a very powerful platform, Jesse. You can help a lot of people, many different areas, marginalized, Latino, LGBTQ+. Also just anyone, right, that doesn't believe in themselves. Because love, self-love is what we talk about here at Love University. Loving yourself, others, and a higher nature. Self-transformation. Self-actualization. Mm-hmm. What would be some advice, and of course Carlos is part of this too, that you can give to young men and women that are doubting themselves because there's something that we call mental capital that we have in our minds, but we don't use it. Like a businessman, if you had a lot of money, would you put it to use or would you just, put it away? Likely you would put it to use, right? So you can generate more of that. But people don't do the same for the mental capital. So how do we get the young folks to use their mental capital in a good way? Starting with Carlos over here. Right, Carlos, are you ready to use your mental capital?
Go for it. just can I say would I ever have thought I would be here today in Sue talking to Jesse and in USC campus, pick up the phone call? But because I was training, it wasn't gonna fall out of the sky by itself. So it's go for it and don't stop before the miracles start to happen.
Okay. Wise words. Words.
Jesse, can you add on top of that?
He hit it right on the head. He hit it. It's go for it. So I remember when I started writing my book. I didn't even start yet. I wanted to start, and I didn't know where, and I didn't know how, and I would reach out to all these authors, and do I write an outline first? I had Post-its all over my wall in my apartment about, I want to talk about this, and I'm trying to figure out what chapters, what's going to go in, and I couldn't get started until finally one author said, just go for it. Just start writing, damn it. And I did. Next thing you know, I had 700 single-spaced pages of blah. And she said, you'll know when you're done. And I did. And then I went back to cleaning up my story and I edited it. And then I went back to making it even stronger and finding an agent. It's taking that initial first step. Go for it. A journey of 1,000 miles, I don't know who said this, starts with one first step. And don't stop before the miracle happens, because oftentimes we want to give up. So what would I tell our youth? Believe in yourself. You are worthy. You do matter. You do have a story to tell. You don't have to leave one life of bondage to another life of bondage. And also give yourself a break. Just give yourself a break. It isn't a race. Appreciate the moment and try to live a life of, I tell myself to try to live in the moment, in gratitude, and allow myself to be loved, which is oftentimes my hardest thing.
I like that.
And you being at Love University,
Of course, allow yourself to be loved, yeah. I think with you two guys, you just came up with a book title. I don't know who's going to write it. Don't stop until the miracle happens. Okay, who you want to write that, or do you want to write it?
I think that's already been coined, so I don't know if we can use it.
Sure?
But we have to check. We have to do our research.
Do your Google search, right? All right, Jesse, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. A blessing. Where can people hear more about your work on a website or things that you're working on right now?
So anyone can find me on jesse-leonauthor.com. My Instagram is jesse_leon_author, and I respond to everyone pretty much that hits me up, and my book is available at every independent bookstore. Support your local independent bookstores, but also available on Amazon in both English and Spanish. I'm Not Broken, No Estoy Roto. It's available on Audible in also English and Spanish. I read the book, I narrated it myself.
Wow.
And I recommend that anyone that wants to read the book get the audio book and listen to it while they're reading, because it's a great way to really capture the essence of the story in both languages.
Exactly. And we'd love to see the sequel, maybe something beyond that, right? With your current life. That would be wonderful.
That is the plan.
You're thinking about it. Okay.
Totally.
Mucho gusto, amigo.
Gracias por tenerme aquí, Alex.
This is Dr. Alex Avila. Mucho gusto tener este señor. Y Carlos también.
Carlos.
Mucho gusto.
Thank you. No, thank you.
Until next time. All right, guys. So that was a great interview live at the Los Angeles Book Festival at USC. We had an amazing time, and this is a great opportunity to interview these wonderful authors and people that have a message that's going to help others. So, Love University students, if you want to be on the show in the future, or if you have a show idea and want to comment on today's show, you can reach us at 310-226-8090. You can write to us at loveuniversitylove@gmail.com. You can visit us at loveuniversity.love. You can also download the podcast on Podbean, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iTunes. You can like us and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Love University Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Love Letter U Podcast. And you can also go to our YouTube channel, Love University. So until next time, this is Dr. Alex Avila. It's time to put away your notebooks, your iPads, your phones. And class is now dismissed. Love yourself, others, and a higher nature. Until next time.